The training camp is history. As a final exam, the national team walkers are thrown into the first race of the season. On the surface, it is a low-key affair with little hype and few spectators. But to the walkers themselves, it represents the first step in establishing the season's stars. Tim Lewis is the heavy favorite to win the men's 15-kilometer race.
This is basically the first long race of the year. I will have 2 races at 20 kilometers before I go into the World Cup in May. And I thought it was very important for me to come down here just as a base training, not only as a competitive race, but a training race in order to prepare me for the World Cup.
The first test of the year is one of form as well as fitness. Style under race conditions is closely analyzed by athletes, coaches, and officials. In race walking, a long, successful season is based upon correcting any bad habits early, ones that could lead to the race walker's curse, disqualification. The top contenders are particularly subject to scrutiny.
All of the walkers know the basic rules of race walking, which are contact with the ground at all times. And if they don't do that, then it's called loss of contact. The other violation would be a bent knee. The knee has to be straightened at the moment that it's perpendicular to the ground. That's the support phase. And if the walker is obviously bending his knee at that point, he's gaining an advantage. The same thing with loss of contact. He's in effect running.
Debbie Lawrence has mastered the efficient floating technique required to go fast.
Once you get the style down, it's really kind of a fun action. You know, it's fluid and you know, and it's a challenge.
On this steamy day in Florida, Lawrence's style and early season conditioning has put her well out in front in the women's division.
My particular race style, I like to go out a little bit easier, let my legs get warmed up, get a little comfortable, and then start increasing the pace.
Lewis's pace can't be matched by the others so early in the year. Ray Sharp, coming out of the snowy California mountains, is one of many who don't match the pace. For Lewis, the final kilometers are covered with relative ease and with no pressure from challengers. By winning today, he has confirmed his position as the man to beat as the season gets underway. Ray Sharp finishes a not too distant but disappointing third, 2 minutes behind Lewis. It was as he had expected. At this preseason event, the women competed in the same race as the men, a departure from the format of international competition. Debbie Lawrence walked away with the women's division crown in 1 hour 13 minutes, a time good enough to place her 16th among the men. Her husband and daily training partner, Don, was 15th.
I had a feeling Tim was going to beat me, but I figured the more distance we could put on everyone else, the better. So I just concentrate on technique and relaxation, and you stop thinking about how tired you are. You just think about, you know, move the hips, pump the arms, things like that. You don't think, oh, God, I'm tired, I shouldn't be here. Just try to think positive thoughts.
Ray Sharp won the first walk he entered 10 years ago. His rise to the top was halted by inconsistency and a disqualification at the 1984 Olympic trials. Living in Northern California, he is now dedicated to his comeback.
I'm on kind of a yearly program where I don't do the same workout every day or the same thing every week for the whole year. I have a period in November and December and into January, which most people would term an active rest, which is a term that means you're still training, but you're not training specifically for your own sport. And what I do is cross-country skiing and cross-country ski racing. I'm a ski instructor up here, and I ski a lot for training. And then when January, February rolls around, it's time to start putting some race walking miles in out on the roads to get prepared for the races in the spring and the summer. I never get tired of the scenery out here. We're surrounded by 10,000 foot peaks. But I guess one of the most important aspects of this as a training site is that we're at high altitude here. The air's thinner up here, and that makes it a good place for endurance type training.
His immediate goal is to qualify for the World Cup this spring. It is a big stepping stone to the 1988 Olympics.
The race in Washington, D.C. is our qualifying race to pick the World Championship team, and I'll certainly be more well prepared for this one than the race that you saw in Florida. In Florida, I'd only been training for about a week to 10 days before that. I was just coming off my cross-country ski racing season, and so I didn't have my best performance, and I'll do much better in Washington, much faster pace for 20 kilometers than I held for 15 in that other race.
Granite monuments and walls of immortalized heroes formed the backdrop for the next gathering of America's small band of race-walking elite. While most of the nation's capital slept, the racewalkers readied themselves for a morning of noble but unsung exploits. Slightly leaner and slightly fitter than they were a month before, both Ray Sharp and Tim Lewis knew today's test would tell the tale of progress gained or lost.
On your mark.
Today's 20-kilometer men's shuffle would select the 5 best walkers to represent the U.S. in the World Cup, the most important international race of the year. For Ray Sharp, it was not a question of merely qualifying. It was a question of relative performance and what he hoped to regain.
Tim was the guy that came along a couple years after I did and took down all my national junior records. And for years we've known he was like one of our big hopes to have an international athlete. It's been good for me because the closer I stay to Tim, the farther I stay ahead of all the rest of the guys that have their sights on me. And it gives me something to shoot for.
The field was soon struggling as Lewis, in a typical statement of self-confidence, set a blistering pace. Race-walking lacks subtlety. It is a mind game played in a body that is trained to move according to strict biomechanical rules. Breakdowns often occur. The goal is to stay legal while walking flat out, pushing back fatigue with concentration, and always staying relaxed and fluid. At this, Tim Lewis is a master, and Ray Sharp a craftsman. Just when it's least wanted, an official is there to observe the slightest breach of contact. Sharp has been disqualified before. Today, he eases off. Lewis currently dominates American racewalking and will be America's best hope at the World Cup next month. But he knows that international competition tells a different story. A story of Americans below the standards achieved by countries where racewalking is more developed and competitive. He is both happy and apprehensive. Carl Schuler, a walker in the 1984 Olympics, qualified in the 50K walk yesterday. Although his second place finish today won't count, he too will face the world's best next month. And for Ray Sharp, happiness is reaching a milestone on his comeback program. Although well behind Lewis, a firm third-place finish today clearly establishes him as one of the nation's best 20K walkers.
Fine. How was it? It was great. I'm glad it's over. But it was a little warm out there today, but you know. No. When did you lost ground on Lewis? Oh, I wasn't even concerned with Tim today. My sights are on him at the end of the summer. I just wanted to make sure I beat all these qualifiers who are fighting it out back there. You know, I just wanted to kind of keep myself ahead of that pack.
For some, the result was disheartening, a performance perhaps less than expected. For the qualifiers, it was a different story. They've passed a major test, but behind their smiles is the knowledge that the real test, the World Cup, is only weeks away. The story